Health Quality Council. Welcome to QI Power Hour on this dreary Friday here in Saskatchewan. Looks like we have a great turnout today, so thanks for taking the time to join us. Today we have Mike Easton, who's going to be sharing a little bit about his corporate culture this morning. So before we get started, I just have some housekeeping items to walk through. So as you recall, QI Power Hour is a free monthly WebEx offered by the Health Quality Council here in Saskatchewan. QI Power Hour provides opportunity for colleagues across healthcare and other industries to hear from local and national improvement experts on a variety of quality improvement related topics. These sessions are recorded for access to our colleagues who are not able to join us on the webinar today, and recordings from past presentations can be found on the Health Quality Council website under the QI Power Hour section. So in addition to representation from all 13 of our health regions in the province, we've also seen participation from other healthcare agencies, as well as other Saskatchewan organizations with an interest in quality improvement. We've also begun to see spread to other organizations within Canada and even abroad. So I'd just like to take a moment to welcome everyone to QI Power Hour this morning. As I've been mentioning, as people have been joining, we are using a teleconference line in conjunction with our webinar today. So please note that we require all participants to mute their lines. Please do not use the mute function on your phone, as this sometimes results in music playing on the line. Please press *6 to mute your line and press *6 again to unmute if you would like to ask a question during the Q&A session later on. I'll give everyone now a moment to make sure their lines are muted. So to get the most out of today's session, we'd like to take a couple minutes to introduce you to the chat functions we'll be using on today's webinar. Please use the chat box on the right-hand side of the screen during the presentation. We encourage you to use the chat function to share questions, comments, and ideas throughout the presentation. You can access the chat function by clicking on the message bubble on the top right-hand side of your screen. We'll have some time dedicated to Q&A at the end of today's presentation. Please send your questions to all participants so we can all join in the discussion. If you're experiencing technical difficulties this morning, please direct message the HQC host, and they will be happy to help you resolve your issue. So let's take a moment to practice this function by typing in the name of the organization you're joining us from. Thanks, Darlene. Five Hills Health Region, Prairie North. Mama Wei Chan. Excellent. So I'll encourage people to continue to use the chat function as an interactive learning tool. We also encourage you to use Twitter as you listen to today's session to share your learnings. Use #QI Power Hour and the handle HQCFast. I'm now delighted to welcome Mike Easton, President and CEO of Argus Industries and TerraCab Industries. Mike has been employed with Argus Industries for over 20 years, serving the last 8 as the President and CEO. Mike also purchased TerraCab Industries in 2015. Mike has been involved with lean manufacturing for many years, including 2 weeks in the UK working in Liverpool at the Jaguar Land Rover factory at the world-class Lean Learning Academy. His business and cultural philosophies have been featured at conferences, on the radio, and in publications such as CBC Radio, Winnipeg Free Press, Wall Street Journal, The Financial Post, and the business book, The Humor Advantage. Mike has spoken at several local and national conferences, including speaking at the Asper School of Business MBA program and at the CME-AME National Lean Conferences. Mike has been married for over 21 years and has 2 great children that you will see in today's presentation. Welcome to the QI Power Hour. Mike, I'll pass it over to you.
All right, thanks, Chelsea. All right. Welcome, everybody. Thanks for joining us today. For me, I'm kind of excited to share anything about culture and try to, I guess a lot of us, we work at least 8 hours a day, 5 days a week. And in the medical field, my brother, he's an ER doctor, so he works a lot more than that. So when you're looking at culture, it's super important because you spend so much time in different environments, and the work environment is one that you spend most of your time, honestly. And so it's very important to have that culture one, not be cancerous, and two, be something you look forward to. So I'm going to show a few things of what we do in my businesses, and I guess when I did I have 3 businesses, but when I did buy all of them, every time I bought one, it was a very, I'd say, negative culture, or there was elements of it that was something that, again, you have to kind of rise to the occasion to take on. And for me, I didn't like that. I kind of felt I'm very transparent as a person, and I kind of like to be who I am and not have to change depending on the environment I go into. So for me, it was important to kind of go around that and say, if, and I guess I use the analogy that when everybody's working for a company, they always say, if I was the president, I would do this, and if I was the president, I would do this. So, hey, I was president, and I said, what do I want to do to make a difference? What do I want to do to create a culture? And probably when I started, 20 years ago or so, I didn't quite know what I was doing, but I knew what I wanted to do, and I didn't understand that it was culture that I was working on. But after a few years and doing some reading and reading some books and talking to people, you realize that culture was really element that I was using to grow our business into a bunch of engaged and excited people to do whatever we're going to do. Each company did something different, so like I always say, it doesn't matter what your product is, and in the medical world, your product is all sorts of stuff, and your customer kind of changes. You have internal customers, but you have also customers coming in with needs. So it doesn't really matter because the culture and the environment that you're in is the key element that actually gets the work done and is what you kind of live and breathe. So I always open with this quote here, not my quote, but it says, culture eats strategy for breakfast, operational excellence for lunch, and everything else for dinner. So they kind of say that it doesn't matter what your strategy or your operational excellence is or anything else you're working on, if you don't have a strong culture and an engaged culture, it'll be irrelevant because there won't get traction and it won't go anywhere, or it might go somewhere, but just for a short time, and then I'll rewind into what it probably naturally goes to. So you can see that picture too, that's our receptionist, and she didn't want her picture taken, but she was quite happy to wear our ape mask, and you'll kind of see more about where the ape plays in our organization. The ape is kind of what got us in the Wall Street Journal. I'll keep going here. Yeah, this works. All right, I'm going to turn off my video now, and you guys can now look at the PowerPoint. So that's my son, Noah, and we kind of call this talk Serious Fun. In our organizations, we do stuff in military, in aerospace, in some medical field, agriculture, mining, kind of all across the board. But, some of the areas we're in, like aerospace and military, there is some life and death involved. So you do need that element of seriousness, especially also in the medical world. But you can take it with a grain of salt and have some fun with it. So I'm going to just show you again what we do, our organization, to actually pull that off, make it something that you guys may want to try to emulate inside your own organizations. So I'm going to start with a quote. It says, "Not everything that counts can be counted, but everything can be counted counts." So this was a sign hanging in Einstein's office at Princeton. And when you look at this, a lot of stuff, when you talk to leaders, and even when I took on Argus is the business that actually I started in, and my father owned it. He bought it in 1979, and he was all about, if I spent $1, I want $1.10 back in my pocket for whatever I did, and that was kind of his golden rule. So you'll see some of the stuff I'm doing, it's very difficult to put it to the dollars and cents. But yet, when you get to the end of the presentation, you're going to see that all these little things we're doing creates efficiencies, and even just increasing the level of engagement to the staff. They work better unified as a group than one person going off on their own with their own mission. So I'll use another quote here. "Culture is the foundation, and whatever culture is will determine what grows out of it." So you can see there's a dandelion there, and how many of you know when you drop a dandelion on a grass, in no time the whole grass becomes dandelions? And culture is the same way. So it's very important to be intentional about what your culture is. It's one of those things that if I was like a fist-pounding kind of, like maybe a voice-raising type of guy, you would see the leadership around me start to emulate that. if I'm the huggy, you know, I love everybody, and you're, you know, I just start a meeting with saying, what's the best thing about today, you know, and everybody wants to just hug each other, and they come into the room and leave the room. Well, again, your leadership's going to emulate that underneath that leader. And it'll also, the other one is the rules of attraction. It'll also attract those type of leaders into that world. Sometimes people don't intentionally be that way. That's just who they are. But you have to be careful about the culture that you're actually creating, because it will emulate around you, and you'll wonder why people below you are like yelling at people or slamming their fists or doing this stuff, and else you look at yourself and you're like, oh, wait a minute, I do that. So again, when I say for culture, very important to be intentional about what you're doing. So I was asked this question, and just giving you a different perspective about culture and the power of it. But what do you think when you hear a car horn honk? And because we're you know, on the phone and everybody's muted, you can't answer that question. So I'll answer it for you. Most people say they feel stressed, they feel maybe a little scared, they feel nervous, they feel like they've done something wrong, all sorts of kind of negative, fearful emotions. When you go, if you look at the photo there, the photo's in the Caribbean. And that's just a street in the Caribbean, and when you're there, you'll realize that their horns in the same Toyota Camrys as we're driving in North America, their horns in the Caribbean mean something different. When they beep, they go beep, 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 and they say, hey, it's like, hey, how's it going? Or just coming around the back of you, or watch out for me, you can see the streets are narrow, so you have to communicate with your horn, and it's a friendly communication. And lots of guys actually change their horn to have a personal sound so they know when they beep their horn, people know, hey, look, there's James coming down the street. So when you hear all this stuff, again, same car, exact same horn, exact same sound, but based on the culture that these people put this car in, the car sends a different message. So again, very important when you're building your own culture and understanding the power of culture, that you understand that sometimes it's not the message, but how the message, or not how, but the culture of the message is actually being sent in. I'll give you a little perspective. Here's my father and my son. So when I first started at Argus, I think it was 1997, within the first couple of days, my dad, he said to me, he goes, Mike, nobody wants to work, so don't make it harder than you have to. And he kind of put some perspective to that, saying, you know, like, understand that inside the world of work, people are paid to come there, and it's not like we just come here for our own reason. So don't make things more difficult, and understand that people are there because they're getting paid. The other side of it is work is not life, it's just a part of life. And I guess that's probably my part that I added on there, is a lot of times I've worked in different organizations where, say you're sick or you're not feeling well, the leadership would then tell you, really, you have to stay home, guilt you into coming back to work or staying at work, even though you know you're feeling like you're at death's door. For us here, we want to kind of put those two together and kind of say, you know what, life is going to happen. And when it happens, you can't guilt someone into coming to work, because that changes the atmosphere again. And so for us, it's one of those things, it's you'll see soon enough, but the two main fundamentals in our organizations are positivity and respect. You own those, nothing else kind of can interrupt the flow of your culture. And again, I will explain.
Mike, I'm just going to stop you for a moment.
Sure.
Just some voices on the line. Can I just ask everyone to take a second and ensure that their lines are all star fixed? Thank you. All right, Mike, sorry for interrupting.
No, it was good. It was distracting me a little for sure.
Thank you.
Oh, someone still is out there. All right, so you see the sign up there, corporate culture. So culture has become a buzz thing really in the last couple of years, 2-3 years. There's some very large conferences going on in the world, a really big one in New York, another one in Florida, another one in California, and I've sent some of my people there, but it's amazing how they go to these and hear these kind of world-class, you know, Fortune 500 speakers talking about culture, and we've been doing it for probably 16, 17 years now at kind of that level. And lots of times these companies are all focused on the culture statement for the behavior of the employee. And they miss the point on the corporate culture, the culture of the company, because a lot of times the people are told to behave in a certain way, and that's culture for sure. But the fact of the matter is the company, the corporate aspect can do whatever they want to do. They can, fire people for any reason. They do whatever, again, I'm not going to go too many details, but in your world, you know what I mean. And so it's kind of that two sides. You got the corporate bureaucracy, politics side, and then you have the individual who's working for the organization. So we wanted to make sure we captured both sides in our culture statement. So the corporate culture is up there. I'm sure you've read it already or the first couple, but it's chronological. And the number one is maintain a respectful and positive tribal culture. And those are the things that in an element of a meeting or an element of an interaction, working together on a team, if you are respectful and positive in your language and your body language, it's amazing how people work together way more efficiently. And again, sometimes when you get a hum in your heart, I guess, and you're doing your job, it's just amazing how the day goes by. Other than saying, grumbling in your head and having this tape in your head spewing negativity, that then now presents itself. So we're very, very focused on number one. And the number two is give the customer the right product at the right time, exactly the way they want it. For me, it's very important to say that number one has to stay number one, and number two, the customer is actually number two, because if we don't do number one consistently, number two will never happen all the time. It'll be a very inconsistent process. Number three, grow the tribe members, and that's educate people. So you can't grow without learning, and so we kind of push our people to take courses. We actually track a statistic of how many hours they spend learning. The other thing is you can't work in a broken environment, so we really have systems and processes for everything. Because if you're doing something, you need a system or process to follow, and it benchmarks it and keeps moving it up. So if you're doing stuff and things aren't going right, you find that your world starts to break down. Fingers start getting pointed at people saying it was their fault. Well, for us, when things break down, we point to the process, and people are excited when things break down because then they point to the process and we figure it out and then get a better way to do it. It just eliminates a lot of, again, finger pointing and the blame environment, which again is not a moving forward, not a positive way to operate. Number five, make it easier to do business internally and externally. So again, if you're doing 21 keystrokes to do one little piece of paper, and you could actually have it in 3 keystrokes if you're working on a computer type of thing, or if you're in the manufacturing shop and you're actually making product, and again, your equipment isn't working right or your tool is damaged and it's slowing you down, those are things that it's our responsibility to give the people the right tools to do the right job. So again, we're very intentional about making sure that it's easy for people to do their job, and as well as our customers, easy to get a hold of us, easiest to pay the bills, easy to track up and follow their orders. And the very last one, which is increase profitability, ensure sustainability. Usually those are 4-letter words in the world, and for us, we say, you know what, if we can take care of number 1 to number 5, 6 should just be a report out. 6 should just be a result of our efforts, and it doesn't have to be a focus. And a lot of other companies I've worked on and actually seen and worked with, number 6 is their number 1. They focus on increasing profitability, and profits is like top of every chart, the front of every meeting, everything top of mind is profit. Well, they let the other 5 slide, and they wonder why everybody is just spinning and working so hard. And really, when you're working to just get more money for the company, I have a feeling it leaves you empty, or it doesn't drive you like it should. So for me, this is like the essence of the corporate culture for our business, and I'll talk about the behavior of the people later, but I'm just thinking to start out, it's very important for you guys to kind of get the grassroots of who we are and why we are. Literally, I'll take a minute or so. If you didn't watch the video at the front end, I'll just tell you a little bit about where we are. Argus 101 started in 1962. My father bought it in 1979. I became president, and I bought it for my father, I guess, in 2009. We have 4 locations and 4 businesses, I guess, technically, or 3 businesses, sorry, and 1 business has 2 locations, and about 100+ employees. Our businesses do rubber and plastic molding, material cutting and conversion, and that would be of cork, foam, plastic, kind of anything soft. And then we have another one called Argus Metals Division, which is opposite, and that's everything hard, like steel, stainless steel, aluminum. We have robotic welding, tool and die work, And then TerraCab, which is a new business for us, or me, it's in Morden, which is about an hour-and-a-half from Winnipeg, and it does cabs. And I'll just show you some quick photos to make things make sense. And you see those are the three companies, TerraCab, Argus, and Metals. So we do some random rubber products. You can see there's the QB thing, it goes in aircraft. Obviously that's a gun, but it's a rubber gun. It's just for parades and training. It is not real. And some of the other things there are some aerospace parts and some submarine parts. This is just foam and cork. Here's some silicone. This is closure foam that goes, we sell a lot of this to Saskatchewan actually. It goes in all your grain bins for some of the Westman type products. These are potato rollers that are like conveyor wheels for potatoes, beets, carrots, that kind of stuff. And these are washers that go in grain bins as well. And then we have some laser inspection equipment. You can see this is our metal side, CNC machine metal. That's a mold that makes tiny little stoppers. And there's some other products. So in our companies, we can take stuff from concept, just so you have an idea. We design it, we make the prints, and we build the parts. So we're kind of a one-stop shop for people. And then going to TerraCab, that's out in Morden, and you just see, these are cabs. So the cabs, we just build the cab that goes on top of that tractor. We obviously don't make the tractor. Then we do some welding, and here's another little cab on a John Deere, and some Kubota, and just a bunch of variety of our cabs. So back to the presentation. So just to have a perspective, a little bit of where we live and what we do. So what is fun? Now I talk about being intentional, and it's very important to define all this stuff when you go through it. You know, serious fun, you can take the word fun and it is completely different to two different, or everybody I'd say. So for me, you look at this image and it is a Ferris wheel, merry-go-round, whatever that would be called, wheel of death. And my wife and a buddy of mine are on that, and they're having fun. They're screaming, yelling, and they're having fun. And I'm on the ground taking photos, which I like to do, and that is equally as much fun because I don't like rides. So again, same environment, same place, two different aspects that are creating fun. So we're just going to put a little bit of definition to that. So Maslow's hierarchy of needs. This is something that's, I guess, been taught in schools for years. And so for us, we like it. I like it because all the companies that I have bought in the past, you can see at the bottom, there's the element of security and survival. Every company I purchased, everybody was living in the world of security and survival. All they cared about is their job, don't look up, don't make eye contact. If the president starts talking to you, they were just trying to get out of that conversation as fast as possible. And, you know, again, one of the things, just protecting their job and getting through each day. That's not kind of thriving, that's just surviving. And so when you look at security and survival, our minimum requirement in my world to belong and work in my companies is I want everybody to have that feeling of belonging. So you can kind of see in the middle there, there's belonging. So for me, that's the entry point. And for all the three companies, Argus, Metals, and TerraCab, when I did move in, even when I took over Argus from my father, I was in charge of the production shop and quality control. And the production shop had already that culture. Everybody had everybody's back. And then as soon as I pull into the president role, I'm responsible for customer service, purchasing, accounting, sales, all kind of the other areas, shipping. And everybody, it was a different world. Everybody was stabbing each other in the back. There was a lot of people that were not happy to come to work, and it was amazing that you could have these two different cultures in the same organization. So that's why earlier on I was saying underneath each leader you create your own culture, and it's very important to be intentional right from the top and make sure that it's spread throughout the organization. And I've given this talk to some other kind of medical organizations and hospitals, and it's interesting the bureaucracy and the red tape that goes around some very small decisions, like you know, just passing that kind of level of authority. And sometimes that halts this stuff. So again, trying to be creative, you guys will see coming up some stuff that will, you don't need a budget to do. You don't need to get permission to do. You can start to do it around you and it becomes a little bit contagious. You can also see stuff that will require a budget. So I guess I'll give you the best of both worlds. just to talk about this triangle a little bit more, is you go to the blue side that says importance. Now, when you're on teams, we do a lot of team activity around here. It's not a one-man show. So whenever we do anything, we call them kaizens, which are basically things to move you forward, events to move you forward, and finding efficiencies and looking for waste. And so in there, the people running those teams and on those teams, they have authority to change the way people work, the way where people's equipment are, and I think you get a sense of importance that you're actually doing something that's important, and you're actually changing, and a lot of companies that, even when I worked for my father, I couldn't do anything without his permission. He was the guy on the button, and for me, my organization's opposite, is I give the authority to everybody. As long as we have clear rules and established boundaries, it's very, very effective to move the company much more forward, more fast. And then the top there, that self-actualization, right of the pink, I call that the mountaintop experience. And, a lot of people, when they get there, they want to try to stay there, and that's an impossibility, because if you live on a mountaintop, in no time you get used to the view, and it's not so exciting anymore. So naturally, you just come down from that. But for me, if you can have a couple of these self-actualization kind of moments in a year, I think you're doing better than 99% of the people out there, because those are the moments that you kind of feel like this is what I was put on earth to do. You kind of feel like you're on the path of purpose for yourself, and those are the times you start telling what you did at work with your friends, with your family, posting stuff on different media outlets. So again, for us, we try to make sure everybody has some of those mountaintop experiences throughout their year, and we put people on different teams and just try to keep things going. I'll just go to the next slide here. So intentional culture. So you're going to see a bunch of stuff that we do to kind of show you the intentionality that I'm talking about. And again, for me, it's not a recipe. Like, it'd be very difficult for you to just take what we do and put it into your world. It's super important that you make it transparent from what you are or what your leadership is. And you try to always go to the highest, and you'll learn soon enough. We talk lowest, but until I tell you about the slide, I can't say lowest. So I have to say, from the highest point in your organization, that they buy in and they support all the way through. If they don't, things tend to be able to be reset if leadership changes, and also you can be labeled a bit of a rogue. And so again, very careful when you do all this stuff. So culture statement. So we talked about corporate culture. Now we're going to talk about tribal culture. I'm not going to read the whole thing. A couple of key highlights here is that it was written probably, like I said, 16, 18 years ago, and it was the sales guy coming up to me and said, Mike, inside this company there's two cultures, and there's the concrete culture and the carpet culture. So based on where you work, in the back shop or in the front office, there's two different people, and we're never gonna get along. And I disagreed with that just, where you worked or the flooring underneath your feet would be such a differentiator in the culture. So I pulled everybody in the carpet side into a boardroom and walked them through kind of a culture discovery kind of event, and they came up with these words. It wasn't tribe originally, it was actually family, and over the years it's turned into tribe. But then innovation, empowerment, commitment, teamwork, integrity, fun. And those ones really meant something to the people, and they're like, yeah, that's who we are. And so then I kicked them out, I put in the production staff, and or the concrete people, and next thing you know, they actually went through the same exercise. They came up with the same words, and it wasn't led or anything else. It was really, it was pretty organic, and I thought that was pretty profound. So I put everybody in the room, and I flipped their little pieces of paper over, which they wrote everything on, and said, look, you guys, you're saying you want the same culture, or we're living in the same culture, but yet just because of the flooring under your feet, you're seeing each other differently. So it kind of broke that barrier, and from then on, we've been this kind of on this path of uniting and building this culture. So like I said, it started as a family, and at a certain point, it turned into a tribe. Tribal voice and Facebook. Communication is very important to your staff, so we do this kind of sporadical newsletter called the Tribal Voice, and we get about 10 different people writing different things, and it just basically shares what's going on in the company. And sometimes, information that's happening in different areas doesn't get to everybody, and it's just important to have clean communication that are kind of sharing what's going on in the world. And everybody kind of, we didn't do it once for about 9 months. We were kind of off. We just were busy, and people started saying, hey, we're missing the tribal voice because we feel a little bit disconnected. So it's just very important to kind of keep clear communication of the direction and where you are in the world, so people have that set compass point to follow. And I think that's it's a very important thing that sometimes people don't put the same kind of value on. You can also look on this one here. We use Facebook lots of people use Facebook and other media outlets to try to sell their product. We actually use it to communicate to our staff. So we'll post quotes and we'll post pictures from our events and our barbecues and our X Games and all these hockey games we do. We post all those photos and we tell people, remember, don't bring your lunches Friday, there's a barbecue. We used to send out group emails, but on a company of about 100 people, I'm going to say 30 of them had email addresses, and the rest were production folk that didn't have an email address. So you're missing the majority of your people. Through Facebook, you post it, and with no time, it's right up on the front screen of everybody's smartphone, and they're getting the information before the people on the emails. So we just find it's a great way to communicate and keep everybody in the same loop. And then it also creates a bit of a story because other people can post photos or post comments, and it just, again, creates a little bit of an online culture. Christmas party and video, we're very, very key. I think one of my things is I really like everybody to have 5 minutes of fame. If you can make everybody feel special and like they're the most important person in the company, at least, as often as you can, it's very important. And so this one, we had a Glee-focused Christmas party. So that's Carlos. He's my VP of Quality Systems. So again, just do the copy the Glee stuff, and then Big Bang Theory. We photoshopped a bunch of our staff's faces on images of Big Bang. And we just try to, again, use these as promotional stuff for the Christmas party coming up. And it just makes people, again, that 5 minutes of fame. They also feel, again, those are the things that they share with their family and their friends, and they think it's kind of a fun thing that they're being recognized at work. Also, I talked about the monkey suit, and this is actually just clips from inside a video. And we do this Christmas video for over 10 years now. And part of the Christmas video, there's usually about a 3-4 minute clip of the monkey hiding in different boxes in the warehouse, and then a video camera hidden somewhere. And then you'll see that, unsuspecting Jeff there walking through the warehouse, and then a monkey jumps out and scares him. And then again, just realize it's just someone in a suit and go on about the day. But it's, again, this is the VP of Finance, asked her to come out and just check some stuff that wasn't adding up. And then when you come back to your desk, there's a monkey underneath it. Again, one more. And then, again, hidden in boxes in the warehouse. So you look at what's going on. There's a few things that are going on with the monkey. One, when we do the video, we try to kind of scare as many people as you can with it, and you build a bit of a community at that moment. So once you get kind of caught by the monkey, you go off into the corner of the warehouse, and then next thing you know, you got 12, 14 people huddled together, laughing, hanging off each other, and just part of the moment, right? Like almost in on a secret. Well, those people, when you're doing that, are actually bonding and breaking down kind of boundaries and stuff like that. The other element of this is then when you're watching the video at a later date at the Christmas party, now your family's there, and also you're reliving that moment again, and laughing with the group. And I always say, I might say it a few times, but if you put anybody through an experience and they have to work together and they have a little bit of I kind of say that, you're singled out, you're kind of like special, right? That not everybody is part of this. And when people come through those type of events or have to work through a problem together and you put them on a team and they have that kind of success at the end, everybody in that team is tighter. Everybody in that team has more respect for each other. Everyone in that team kind of rises the whole kind of tide around them, right? A high tide raises all boats. Well, that's kind of what happens when you do that. And it's super important to kind of have those experiences. And sometimes you don't get the same kind of traction when you're doing work stuff as you're doing play stuff. So we kind of try to blur the lines between work and play quite often. Summer hours. So summer hours is one of those things that we make, well, you guys too, but we live in Winterpeg, Manitoba, and so we get our fair share of winter. And so one of the things that's important about us is from May to September, we work an extra 45 minutes a day, and then we split the company in 2 teams, and you get every second Friday off for that 4-month period because you work the extra 45 minutes a day. And so you get long weekends every other weekend all summer long. So that's one of those things that's super, super big with us. Argus Cup hockey, you can see there. So we have an unsuspecting warehouse, and a couple people come in, and in no time, it's turned into a floor hockey rink, and we kind of have the whole tournament type of thing. You can see in the bleachers there, or well, the racking, there's a whole bunch of people, and you can't go to a hockey game without a beer cup in your hand, and all those beer cups are actually filled with candy, so we create a candy bar, and you put all your favorite candies in a little beer cup. Anyways, it's about a 2-hour event, and we get pizzas, and at the end you have these champions. Again, the other beauty of this is that you got VPs working with shippers, working with people who've been in the company 2 weeks, and people who've been in the company for 30 years. Breaks down all the barriers you can imagine, and at the end, it's one of those very unifying events. Food and cook-offs, I've probably said it enough already, but we love our food. Any opportunity to have a barbecue. This year is Culture Day, so you're wearing your culture colors. You see Irish and Portugal there, and then you have to bring in food from your culture as well. This one was a mac and cheese cook-off, so there's about 10 or so people signed up to bring their best mac and cheese recipe, and we, as you can see, we matched it with Hawaiian Day, and you just go around with little Dixie cups trying everybody's thing. This is Comfort Food Day, so obviously tomato soup and grilled cheese, you know, need I say more. Argus X Games, been doing those for about 15 years, and it's a thing where you take the whole company out in the parking lot, and you just go red, green, blue, yellow, red, green, blue, yellow, randomly split the whole company up into 4 teams, and usually after, obviously, a barbecue or something, some kind of food. Last year we had a food truck in, this Asian food truck, just parked on the parking lot, and then everybody just went and ordered their food, and at the end they just gave us, the company, a bill. Super fun. That alone was super fun. And then you go and you take all of our products. These are actually hooks that we make for a tarp strap, a rubber tarp strap that we also manufacture here. But each event is using our products, so some foam from Closure Foaming, and you have to create something or do something. We have balls for the potash industry, again, very Saskatchewan-based, so we make hundreds of thousands of those. And then this is just a food relay, so hot, spicy, sour, all these different things, and you have to line up and your team has to go through it in order. We have these things called single point lessons, so everybody in your team has to build a crossbow out of office supplies, and then the pencil that goes the furthest wins. Again, team events using our products and processes. This is human lawn bowling in the warehouse with a chair. Pretty basic, but it might have been the highlight of that season's X Games. And then the biggest thing is you got the champions. So these are all this is the team that won in 2016. And again, bragging rights for the year. Usually they all get T-shirts that say X Games champions. That's the type of thing that sometimes the original quote saying not everything that you can count counts. And so when you look at that, there's lots of stuff that happened there. I think one of the highlights would have been 2 brothers that worked for us for several years. I'm going to say 5 years at least. And inside their family, there's a rift, and the 2 brothers never talked. And one was in purchasing and one was in manufacturing. So they didn't have to really see each other, but if they ever did, they always used like a go-between here, go give this to my brother, here, go give this to my brother. And so one day, because of the random red, green, yellow, blue teaming, they got put on the same team. And lo and behold, what happened? They had to work together to do these challenges, to do these games. At the end of the day, magic happened. At the end of the day, the wall was broken down between the 2 of them. They went out back after the games, and they just talked. And then after that, they went out and thinking for apps and drinks. And from then forward, they actually were friends again and started to build and mend the relationship. Again, you can't connect that to the bottom line, but inside the organization, all of a sudden these kind of roots of communication that were being, take this to my brother, take this to my brother, they were gone. And also, again, that the high tide raises all boats. That feeling of, wow, 2 brothers are back together again, that raised everybody's spirits. Again, that positive, respectful culture was just increased right there. It's very difficult to put money to that when you're dealing with people that are all talking budgets. But I'll tell you, there's efficiencies there. There is just a value that you can't place on a spreadsheet. Company T-shirts. We like to celebrate people. I talk about the 5 minutes of fame. So this is Willie. He was with us for, I don't know, 10 years for sure, 8 years. He already retired once. He was a sign painter. His son worked for us for probably 15 years and said, my dad retired. He's sitting at home and he's got nothing to do. He was a sign painter. Is there anything he can do here? He was 72, I think, at the time, maybe 68, something like that. I think when he finally left us, he was 77 years old. So you got to think, 77 years old, working in a factory. A lot of companies I know, he'd be the first guy you either let go or he'd be the one guy that you would forget about. We kind of said he was knee-high to a grasshopper. He had a mouth like a sailor, but yet he was loved by everybody. He just a little personality, and a very hard worker as well. But you look at what he's painting, that big rectangle there is actually a part that goes into a striker vehicle, a military vehicle, and the job of that is to reduce the heat signature on the parts inside the vehicle that give off heat, so heat-seeking missiles can't actually get a lock on your vehicle. Super important part. So he's here, he's painting all the white to silicone foam, and he has to just seal the edges of it with this kind of rubberized paint. Super important product. Again, how do you make him feel important? So I took this photo and I made it into a t-shirt, because we do t-shirts, all sorts. People draw stuff and whatever, we turn into t-shirts. So if you're familiar with the Star Wars saga story, so we said Argus Wars, Danny, I am your father. So Danny was his son that worked for us, and we called him Willie Vader, the painting Jedi. Again, 70 or 70-something years old, and he said, you know, one of the star moments, and I'll explain star later on too, but one of the star moments for him was walking through a mall near his house, and some youth went by him that he didn't even know and had this shirt on their back. And you're walking through the mall and you're 70-something years old, and you see a kid who you don't know wearing a picture of you on their back, and they're proud to do it. You got to tell me that you feel valued by your organization. You got to feel that 5 minutes of fame maybe went to 10 or 15 minutes, and it's just one of those things that, for me, if I can make Willie feel like he is the most important guy in the company, I think I'm doing my job, because I again, try to have a personal connection with everybody in the organization, and just little things like that just elevate stuff. So again, these are creative little things to make people feel like they're very valued and they are the only thing that matters in the organization. Lunch and learns, a lot of people, this is a training room we have, a lot of people do lunch and learns to make people learn more about their job. We do lunch and learns for people to learn more about the world. So we have like a fisheries guy come in and teach different things about fishing and where to look for fish and how to fish. We've got a bunch of fishermen here. We have some fitness people that come in and do some fitness coaching. I'm a hobby photographer guy, so I did a whole thing on photography. Willie, who we just talked about, had a stroke, and he was off for a while, but amazingly he came back. But people were kind of freaked out by it, so we actually brought in a doctor who talked about strokes, and we watched a TED Talk on strokes. So again, those are the lunch and learns that, again, you're not just always trying to ram things down people's throat to make them work harder for you, but you're actually just trying to make them learn more about the world and become better people. And again, if you care about your people that much, imagine how much they care about the organization. Lunch with the president. A lot of times in organizations, when a president walks into the factory, no eye contact with the president, or end your conversation. You just don't want to engage the president. There's this level of intimidation and fear. For me, I hated that, and I just wanted to be, able to be communicated at just the person. I'm not there with the big, stick looking to find who's not working hard enough so I can beat them. And so I just tried to change that in the culture. So one of the things I said, I want to do lunch with the president, and anybody can sign up. So I have a sign-up sheet every month, whoever can fit in my car, and that's who signs up. And then we go, and they get to pick the place that we go eat. So I tell you, I eat a lot of steak on these days, and so they pick the place, and it's their agenda. So I'll tell you, I've had people that work for me for 2 weeks, and again, many years, go for lunch, and there's 3 or 4 of us, and it's amazing how just, again, breaks down walls, breaks down barriers. They get to know that I'm just a real person. I get to know their hopes and dreams, learn their dog's names, learn their kids' names, learn their wife's names, and where they want to go, and I help support them through that, because you know what? Everybody, in my opinion, doesn't matter what you do, you all have hopes and dreams, and they're all important. And so for me, there's an image there. That's actually dinner with the president, because I do have a night shift as well, so you can't just single out the day stuff. So we went for dinner, and you can see there's 5 people there. So it was a bit of a Shrine Circus car that night to get everybody in there. Irresistible environment. So again, I could say whatever I wanted in all these slides, because you guys are not here. You can't confirm what I'm talking about. But one of the things I get over and over again is people say the feel of the place. When they walk in the front door, they're here for 5 minutes. They get escorted into my office by reception, and they sit down, and they're like, I've been here 5 minutes, and I can't help smile. I don't even know what that means, because they've met maybe 1 or 2 people and seen a couple people walk by them, and they already have this, I don't know what it is, this culture in them to say, like, this place is just a happy place. So there's one of the things that doing all this stuff, again, how do you put that on a spreadsheet on the bottom line? How do you show that to the bank? You don't. but you know there's value in that. So again, even some of our signage you can see, this is a little bit of the media stuff we get, but watch out ahead for amazing Argus employees. We have a few signs around that look like, you know, hazard signs, but really it's just promoting the tribe. We were in this business book, The Human Advantage. He heard me speak once, and then he got super curious and came and did a whole investigation on our company, and we got some pages in there. And just lots of press. You can see the monkey suit there. It gets talked about a lot. You know, everything is really based on our culture, so you can just see a lot of different things going on, but it's really our culture and using, you know, this one is lean manufacturing in the Financial Post. So anyways, you know, again, it's amazing when you stand out a little bit and you think you're doing what's right, and you get opposition for sure. Opposition, my dad was probably the biggest guy. I get this question at the end all the time. People say, oh, how's your dad just like you? And, you know, you guys, you know, took on the world together as superheroes. And I'm like, absolutely not. He was the guy looking for every dime, and why are you doing this? And, you know, how am I going to get these 2 hours back that you guys went and played X Games? And yeah, just ground me. And but you know what? It made me make sure that what I was doing was the right thing, and also made me put a lot of metrics in place to prove that actually things do get better and your efficiencies show up and things get done because people are engaged. They actually are listening. They actually care. And it's a tight-knit group. They have each other's back. Those are the things that, in the end, that makes that for a great place to go every day. This is, I don't know if this is, you know, relevant or not, but we use what we call hybrid matrix organization. A lot of organizations have managers, and every manager has so many, you know, reporters, and so you have this kind of big tree. We try to eliminate the tree, flatten it out a little bit, and so what we say is that we have a whole system for customer and products going this way, and we have what we call supportive leadership, and leaders off to the side that come from the bottom to support the processes. So it's important in this model to have everything processed out and everything in a system, and if the system breaks down, you come like a tow truck on a highway and you fix what's broken instead of putting out fires all over the place. So if you can kind of get that as a model, by all means look up matrix organization, and I'm not sure, again, how that would work in your world. But for us, it really got rid of a lot of bureaucracy, got rid of a lot of time that things sat on managers' desks, that if it was in the hands of a leader with what we call a self-led team, so it'd be like a team of 5 to 8 people that are all self-led, and they have clear goals and objectives. And like I said, you talk about, you know, increasing efficiencies, things become lightning speed. Things that used to take 4 or 5 days take, you know, 20 minutes now. It's a little bit mind-boggling. But anyways, by all means, investigate that a little bit. So meetings, death by meetings, if anybody's seen the John Cleese video series, it's something that we put a lot of emphasis on to make sure that we don't waste time in meetings, because everything is, can we meet, you have a minute, the biggest thing about us is we want to be intentional about our meetings. So we've made this analogy, or I made this analogy for magic. So M is making tomorrow better than today, and that just means your meeting has to be about continuous improvement, accountability to the tribe, to the customers and suppliers. So again, you want to be accountable in the meeting. Gemba is a Japanese word for get up and go see, or go to where the truth is. Biggest part about Gemba, it's a lean manufacturing type of word, but if you're in a meeting and you kind of go in a circle once and you've had this discussion and you're missing a few facts, so you just feel maybe raising your voice or saying the same thing over and over again is going to get people to believe you, we say, you know what, go Gemba. Get up and go to where the truth is. If you're saying there's something not working, you're saying, you know, process is failing, you're saying that, you know, this is wrong, get up and go to actually where it is and have a discussion about the facts. And so we kind of, again, try to eliminate those type of circle type meetings. Innovation, we call engaging and executing on our collective imagination. You have to innovate. Don't just do the same old, same old. Think how to leapfrog the technology to go to the next level. And I always say, how do you do that? By collaborating. You can't do it alone. You need more people in the room. So I always say, come together to solve our problems. Lots of people get a problem in their ear on the phone or in an email, and then you try to send an email out with CCC, and you're carbon copying everybody under the thing, and you're giving everyone instructions what to do, and you're like, if I send this email, problem solved. The problem is nobody has that same sense of urgency as you. They don't own that problem. So I say, walk down the hallway, pull this person in, this person in, this person in, make it a 5 or a 10-minute meeting. It doesn't always have to be an hour or half an hour, and then share the problem, do the same thing you're going to do in email, but do it in person, and you transfer the sense of urgency. And if you don't transfer the sense of urgency, it'll never get the same kind of veracity to get it done without that. And I talked about STAR moments. STAR stands for something they always remember. Anytime we have an opportunity for our customer or supplier, and for me, most important, the tribe, to have a STAR moment, it's very important to keep those going because, you know, one quick story, I'm trying to make sure I'm on time here. One quick story is one of my lead designers in the metal side been creating all sorts of really genius stuff throughout the year, helping support his leader. And at Christmas time, I always tell my key leaders to go and take someone that actually made your life easier this year, take them for lunch. During lunch, fish a little bit and try to find something that they want for Christmas that they probably won't get or it costs a couple bucks, and then go buy it for them after lunch as like a surprise, as a little treat. And so one year this designer, he's a big hunter, and he's been looking at these hunting boots at Cabela's for about 2 years, and they're probably like $220, $240 bucks, and he's like, oh, I've been looking at them for a couple of years, but you know what, my wife will never buy them for me, they're just ridiculous, and whatever, and we'll move on, and then he talks about some other things. Well, I give these guys a budget of about that to go bless the guy. And so you look at that, and so after lunch, he's like, well, let's go buy those boots. Well, the guy's mouth just pretty much dropped to the floor, and he's like, well, what? Why? I don't understand. And, you know, you're just asking all these questions. Like, because you've done such a good job, you made my life easier, this is the least I can do just to show you that, you know, we really appreciate what you've done. So, again, a STAR moment, that would be a STAR moment in itself. But then you go shopping and he's trying on boots and all that stuff. Again, that all builds the moment. The other side of it is when he goes home, he walks in the door with his bag from Cabela's, and his wife's like, well, what's that? And he's like, oh, remember those boots I was talking about? Yeah, my company bought them for me as a thank you. Well, most people would think that, oh, the wife's like, wow, that's amazing. No, it didn't go that way. The wife was like, sure they did. You just bought the boots because you've been talking about them for 2 years, and you're trying to say your company paid for them. Well, the VP actually had to go and talk to the wife because it was a bit of a kerfuffle. The thing is, at the end of that, what happens is you created a STAR moment, not just in the employee, but you created it in the whole family, and then all the stories that are going to come from that. Again, you know, not like I look for mileage in my STAR moments, but that one really went far and really made a difference all the way around. And it's one of those things, if your STAR moment can touch the family and lift everybody up in the family, that's, I said, you're doing the right things. So again, we do lots of things, and we kind of say, you know, like, maybe I think I'm doing right, but how do I know? Because maybe I'm not. Maybe my staff don't like it, and they're like, can you stop doing that? So we do this little 5-second culture survey, and you look at it there, and 5 questions. They're maybe not the questions you were thinking, but it says, I believe that Argus is genuinely a higher purpose and beyond profits. My role in the Argus tribe has real purpose, is more than just a job. It says, I feel I'm in control of my development, and I am progressing personally and professionally within the tribe. I consider my coworkers to be like family and friends. And the last one is, I am very happy in my job. And we purposely didn't just say I'm happy in my job, because lots of people can say I'm happy. We want to know if you're very happy. So if you look at the score, I kind of said if we can sit in the middle portion of that sometimes, that's very important to me. If I can be in the sometimes thing, majority, makes me feel good because, hey, it's still a factory, you guys. We're still manufacturing. We're in Winnipeg. This isn't some, glam, whatever. So, but if you look at it, definite is the winner for sure, and sometimes is another majority, and not at all is only 11. So if I'm doing that, I'm quite happy, and it just tells me again that the tribe is still connecting with how we're rewarding and how we're running the organization. Back to Maslow's triangle, so you can see all the intentionality that we are doing, and you can kind of see how if we keep doing what we're doing, belonging is definitely going to be where everybody's going to be living, and if they can move up to importance in the mountaintop, again, like I said, I think it's a fine organization to be in. I'm going to just keep going. Typical organizational chart, as I made reference to before, is kind of the president at the top, sits over a pyramidal structure, and the production staff at the bottom. And if you've heard the saying, crap flows downhill, this is the model that they're referring to. Nothing new on that thing. For me, pyramids built by the slaves, kind of oppressional, and again, I don't like the crap flowing downhill. Because every time, if I just say deal with it to someone and walk away, you're passing on a problem to someone who has less authority than you and less access to resources, or what I say is deeper pockets. They don't. They have less deep pockets. So what we do is it just never sat right with me, and I was sitting with one of my VPs, I don't know, 10 or so years ago, and we just talked about it. I said, this is the model that I feel I identify with, is that I'm actually on the bottom, and I'm supporting you guys, giving you all the resources you can have to make you as more effective and as efficient as you can be, and you need to do the same, and your leaders need to do the same, all the way to production staff. And if something happens to the production staff and they have an issue and crap flows downhill, it goes to someone who has more authority and deeper pockets. And if they can't deal with it, then it goes to the vice presidents, and they have more authority and deeper pockets. And if it ends up on my desk, it has, ultimate authority and, I guess, V pockets. And at that point, I better wake up and make sure that we address this. And maybe we need another building, another piece of equipment, hire a bunch of people, whatever that issue is. So take this one step further. Because I don't like the pyramidal kind of image, a tree is actually a symbol for life. It's, life and new beginnings and hope and all this good stuff. So I'd sooner have that as an image than a pyramid. And then when you look at this, if you go to the outside edge of the tree, that's where all the fruit is. And that's really what the customer wants. So when you put this over top of a tree, I'm kind of at the base of the tree. I would be the one at the root of the organization, and I would be one protecting the foundation, protecting the roots, and allowing nutrients to flow up the tree, which is really my job inside the company. The other side of it is each one of those branches have their ability to grow on their own and get bigger and have more fruit based on maybe one branch would be purchasing, one branch would be sales, one branch would be production. And each one has their own abilities to grow, and then again, the most important part is the fruit. That's what the customer wants. That's on the outside of the tree, and that's where your production staff are. So again, looking at this model, we call it a supportive leadership model because it's just about supporting people all the way up, and it's based, I guess, on like a servant leadership model. And then you can see, I get this question too, so I just built into the presentation, but you can see the triangle is in all of our logos when we go through, and you'll see some logos. But the triangle, this is what it's based on. The upside down triangle is our imagery for our supportive leadership model, which is what we base all our organizations around. All right, so a couple more slides here, and I'm going to wrap up. This one is, people say, Mike, it looks like you're just trying to make everybody happy. And I kind of say, we cannot create happiness. And this is my quote. It's not my job to create happiness, but to create the conditions for happiness to occur. And so you look at this picture there, and that's my son swinging on this little rope into the water. Him and his buddy, any other day, if there's no rope and no little twig there, they would have sat on the shore and been bored. Because someone was nice enough to hang a 2-cent rope with a free twig, these guys swung for hours. And I say inside your organization, if you have opportunities to make something fun, create an element of fun, and again, it doesn't have to cost money, but just an element that increases the level of fun and maybe reduces the element of seriousness, it's amazing how your workday just speeds up. And a 5S philosophy inside the world of lean is like sort, shine, set, and order. The very last one is sustain. And most people say, well, how do you sustain all this stuff? How do you keep it going? And the North American translation from the Japanese word, which I don't have the Japanese word up there, but they always translate it as discipline. Well, one of my leaders went to Japan on a lean course a few years back, and he came back, he said, it's interesting, Mike, because the word sustain actually isn't discipline. The Japanese culture actually sees it as the word believe. So to sustain this stuff, it's not that you need more discipline or more rules in place. You actually need everybody on the team to just believe in it. And if you're walking around with the belief inside you that all this that you're doing is the right way to do it, and it comes from a place of, you don't need sticky notes every day to remind you of what you believe. I always kind of use the funny analogy of, wearing pants is just a belief that in society today, you don't leave your house without pants on. You didn't have a sticky note at your door reminding you saying, do you have your pants on? No, you wake up, you put them on, you go out of the house. It's a belief. It's not something you need a process for. So like I said, the more you can line up your staff on your teams that they believe in what you're doing and the direction you're going, the more things just happen and happen quickly. Finishing with that quote we started with, not everything that counts can be counted, and not everything that can be counted counts. I hope it makes more sense to you now, and you kind of see the angle that I was taking on it throughout the organization, and how, looking at some of the, I'm going to say, traditional leaders from the 70s and 80s, they had a different perspective on leadership. And I feel I'm bringing kind of the next generation leadership that this is really the better way to lead, and it might not be a better way to lead for the top people, and in my organization what we say is the bottom people, but it's better for everybody, and that's what I always say is for my organization, I don't want to leverage all my staff to make me have the best life possible. I want to leverage all my staff to make us go on the most fun and the best journey that I can. So I'll leave you with a paradigm shift in your mind. So there's my son Noah on the left and his friend Jamie on the right, and again, they're on the same ride, and you look at Noah on the left, and he is having fun, and Jamie on the right is scared out of his mind. So how can you have fun and be fearful in the same thing? So I'm just kind of giving you this we always say he's working really hard. So here you go. A true master of living well makes little distinction between his work and his play, his labor and his leisure. He simply pursues his vision of excellence at whatever he does, leaving others to decide whether he is playing or working, because to him he is always doing both. So that's kind of my challenge to you guys, is saying in your worlds, if you can actually blur the lines between working and playing, you'll never work another day in your life. And you also have, you'll have, I think, a more enriched life, and something that maybe you'll have some star moments for yourself and some mountaintop experiences for yourself. And when those come to you, you're very quickly to try to pass them on to other people. So here's my daughter and my son. My daughter, this is her only picture in here, so she was quite offended I didn't use any of her and only Noah. So now they're both in there. Anyways, so serious fun. Welcome to the tribe. That's what we say. So I'll offer questions, and maybe I'll start reading some of these texts. But that is my presentation for today. I thank you guys for listening, and I hope timing was okay for you.
Thanks so much, Mike. I'm just sitting here looking around the room at HQC, and there was lots of smiles and lots of laughs here, and I have to say that yours is one of my favorite presentations that I've attended. So thanks so much for taking the time to share your experience and share what you guys have been working on. It kind of makes me want to come work at Argus right now.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate that.
So I recognize that we are at the 11:30 mark. However, I would welcome people to stay on the line with us if they can and pose their questions directly to Mike. To get us started, I see that we have one from Francesco. He said, just a curiosity, have you ever tried to measure the financial and production benefits of our Argus corporate culture? And which values have you tried to measure, and which indicators have you used?
We have like a lot. We're very meticulous about measuring. We have KPIs, which are key performance indicators, for all the big business metrics, and then what we have something called PIs, which are performance indicators, which aren't the key ones, but they're the ones that actually make the world go round for people in their different areas. So, you know, the 5-second survey was, because culture is elusive to the, like I said, the numerical capturing of data, and so it's difficult. So we try to capture it, one, in that 5-second survey. The other thing we do is I also poll people as we go for lunches, and my other leaders, we have something called one-on-ones, and so I meet with all my direct reports and one-on-ones every month, and we do this instead of annual reviews. You know, when you sit down once a year with your leader and you have your annual review, and it's really the flavor of the month, and it's not that valuable. We have literally, 45 minutes to 1 hour one-to-ones, and we go through an agenda. Inside the one-to-one, one of the questions we ask is there anything that's not irresistible in your world? And so they would flag up one time the lights in the bathroom where, the flickering type of, lights, and so we just address any little thing that people don't appreciate in their world to make it irresistible. And we kind of coined that frame. We try to create this place and make it an irresistible environment. So again, the 5-second survey is definitely kind of one of those things. The one-to-ones, and it's very tough, again, to put a number to it. That would be my thing. So you have to actually draw all this stuff out in person. And again, that just opportunity to communicate with people. And the one thing I've learned about anything is when you ask someone their opinion and you actually listen and take it to heart, they feel like $1 million. They're like, you know what, I've been in companies for 30 years and no one's ever listened to me, and this is amazing. And so even this TerraCap company we purchased a year and a half ago, I sat down with all the staff and I've gone for lunch with them, and we're asking, some of their ideas, and we're using their ideas, and these guys have been there for 16, 18 years. You know, like, this is the first time that a leader in this organization actually asked me for my idea, and let alone we're actually doing it and changing the shop. So those are the things that that I would say you have to kind of get to the people, and it's difficult to measure it. The other things like the profitability, and we call it unrealized time on the shop floor, so it's more the productivity levels of everybody, eliminating waste. We keep track of all those, and they've all definitely increased. So those are, you have to find the metrics, I think, that show the inefficiencies, and then when you do this stuff, you can start to see them increasing, that your efficiencies that you're doing are actually getting better.
Great, thanks, Mike. I'll pause here if anyone would like to ask further questions to Mike on the line or via the chat.
Hi, Mike. This is Carrie Lynn Voigt. I'm in North Battleford calling from Prairie North. I wonder if you could talk a little bit about your process for recruiting your executive members or your leadership. Do you do a lot of internal hiring, or how do you develop your staff?
Well, the one thing that's kind of neat is the more intentional you get about your culture, it's very easy to see when people fit in and don't fit in. And a lot of times when you're hiring, you know, I hired my VP of production or manufacturing engineering, I don't know, 7 years ago. And, you know, one of my first questions are, you know, how good are you at a barbecue? How good are you to throw a party? You know, all the stuff about entertaining people, because that's one of the roles, is to be able to be social and be able to, you know, get into people's lives a little bit and pull them into the organization. So, you know, I get the people to kind of hire for their own teams because the people become more loyal that way. But when you're in there, it's very important to let the culture shine through, and like I said, the more definitive you are in your culture, the more you can kind of throw these left field questions out there to get people out of their comfort zones a little bit, because, you know, right out of the gate, I'm talking to an engineer who's very analytical. He actually was a rocket scientist beforehand. So you're talking to someone who's highly educated, rocket scientist, and the first question I ask is, you know, how good can you throw a party? And so, you know, right out of the gate, you get him scrambling, and you realize that, you know what, he's, you know, right for the job, because he engages on that cultural element very quickly. You know, I would say inside an organization, you can teach everybody you need to teach, because that's what you're good at. I'm great at, you know, rubber molding. We're great at building cabs. We're great at all these type of production things, and yeah, we got processes and systems. I can train you all that. I can't train you on the cultural element and how you respond to it, or what it means to you. So to surround yourself with people who are aligning to your culture, the more intentional your culture is, it's much easier to interview for that, because you're asking questions that will feed into the culture and see how they respond. Did I answer your question properly?
Yes, thank you so much.
Okay.
Any other questions for Mike? Well, thank you so much for your time this morning, everyone. Mike, great presentation. Thank you so much for joining us on QI Power Hour. Everyone will notice that I've launched an evaluation poll, so please take a couple more minutes out of your day to let us know how this session was for you. We'll share those results back with Mike, and we'll use them to help improve our future offerings as well. So with that, I'll give you a few more minutes to close the poll, but we'll bring our call to an end this morning.
And thanks, everybody, for listening, and thanks for your interest in hearing my story. I appreciate it.
Thanks so much, everyone.
You will now be disconnected by the moderator.